Hello, welcome, or welcome back. Come on in. Have a seat. I'm about to begin the story. You don't want to miss this one. The Dark Origins of Fairy Tales. Episode 3. Snow White, the Queen's Terrifying Punishment. This one works perfectly because everyone knows the basic story, but almost nobody knows how the Grimm version actually ends. The tale was recorded by the Brothers Grimm in their 1812 collection, Grimm's Fairy Tales. And the ending is far darker than most modern retellings. The tale we recognize today first appeared in the collection in the early 19th century, but even then it was already an old story that had been passed down through generations. In the earliest versions, Snow White was not simply a princess rescued by kindness and love. Her story was darker, more brutal, and filled with repeated attempts on her life. The jealous queen does not try to kill Snow White only once. Instead, she tries several times. First, she disguises herself as an old peddler woman and laces Snow White into a bodice so tightly that the girl collapses and nearly suffocates. Later, the queen returns again, this time with a poisoned comb which she places into Snow White's hair. Only after those two attempts fail does the queen finally turn to the famous poisoned apple. Modern retellings often remove these earlier murder attempts, leaving only the apple. But the original Grimm version shows a far more determined villain. The queen is not satisfied until she is certain the girl is dead. It is a reminder that many fairy tales were originally meant to be cautionary stories about jealousy, vanity, and the dangers that can hide behind a friendly face. Disclaimer: the Ember and Ink Studios is not responsible for ruining your childhood. The stories you are about to hear come from historical folklore and the earliest recorded versions of familiar fairy tales. These are the versions that existed before they were softened for children. Listener discretion is advised. Long before fairy tales were softened for children, they were warnings, stories whispered beside hearth fires, carried across centuries, and written down by those who feared they might disappear. But the versions we know today are not the originals. Tonight we open another page in The Dark Origins of Fairy Tales. Most people know the story of Snow White. A jealous queen asks her magic mirror a simple question: who is the fairest of them all? When the mirror declares Snow White the most beautiful, the queen orders the girl killed. Snow White escapes and finds refuge with 7 dwarfs in the forest. But the queen discovers she is still alive. Disguised as an old woman, she gives Snow White a poisoned apple. The girl falls into a deep sleep. Eventually a prince arrives, breaks the spell, and Snow White lives happily ever after. At least, that is the version most people remember. But the original ending of this story was something very different. In the version recorded by the Grimm brothers, the evil queen is invited to Snow White's wedding. She does not yet realize the bride is the girl she tried to kill. When she arrives at the castle, she discovers the truth. The punishment that follows is one of the most brutal in all fairy tale history. Iron shoes are placed into a fire until they glow red hot. The queen is forced to put them on. Then she must dance in the burning shoes until she collapses and dies. This was the justice of the original tale. In early folklore, evil was not simply defeated. It was punished in a way no one could misunderstand. Why these stories were so harsh? To modern audiences, Endings like this can seem shocking, but early fairy tales were not meant to comfort children. They were warnings about jealousy, cruelty, and betrayal. In a world without modern justice systems, stories often delivered their own form of punishment. And the message was simple. Cruelty would always return to the one who created it. Today, Snow White is remembered as a gentle story about kindness and friendship. But hidden beneath the version we know lies a darker tale. The poisoned apple itself may not be accidental symbolism. In European folklore, apples often represented temptation, knowledge, and danger. Long before the story of Snow White, apples already carried darker meanings in mythology. In some traditions, they were connected to death and enchantment. The idea of a beautiful fruit hiding poison was a warning often repeated in old stories. Not everything that appears harmless can be trusted. In Snow White's tale, the apple becomes the perfect weapon. It is ordinary, tempting, and innocent-looking. Exactly the sort of thing a young girl might accept without suspicion. The queen met her justice. It came with fire and iron. To modern audiences, this punishment can seem shocking, but early fairy tales often ended with harsh justice. In these stories, evil was not simply defeated. It was meant to be seen, judged, and punished. Because the story may be familiar, but the truth behind it rarely is. Until next time, dear listener, another page waits in the dark origins of fairy tales. Don't leave yet. We have more for you. While the story of Snow White tells of jealousy, beauty, and a cruel stepmother's attempts to destroy a young girl, the folklore collected by the Brothers Grimm contains many similar stories where kindness and cruelty are tested in strange and magical ways. One such tale is known as The 3 Little Men in the Wood. In this story, a widower marries again, bringing a new wife and her daughter into the home he shares with his own child. The new wife quickly reveals her true nature. She favors her own daughter and treats her stepdaughter with cold cruelty. One winter day, she sends the girl deep into the forest during a heavy snowfall, ordering her to fill a basket with strawberries, an impossible task in the middle of winter. Lost and freezing, the girl eventually comes upon a small cottage hidden among the trees. Inside live 3 mysterious little men. The girl politely greets them, shares her small piece of bread, and even sweeps the snow from their doorstep. Pleased by her kindness, the little men reward her with 3 magical gifts. With each word she speaks, pieces of gold will fall from her mouth. She will grow more beautiful each day. And one day, she will become a queen. When the girl returns home with strawberries in her basket and gold falling from her lips, the stepmother becomes furious with jealousy. Determined that her own daughter should receive the same rewards, she sends her into the forest to find the cottage. But the girl is rude and selfish. She refuses to share her food, insults the little men, and refuses to help them. For her cruelty, the little men grant her 3 very different gifts. With every word she speaks, a toad will fall from her mouth, her beauty will fade, and she will meet an unhappy fate. Stories like this remind us that many fairy tales were not simply stories of magic, but warnings, tales that rewarded kindness and punished cruelty in ways that were sometimes as strange as they were severe. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Dark Origins of Fairy Tales. We hope you enjoyed it as much as us bringing it to you. Please leave a comment. Is there a dark origins of fairy tales you'd like to know more about? Subscribe and help us reach 50 subscribers turn on notifications, and never miss another episode again. Hit the like button. Believe it or not, this actually helps the analytics.